Hi, Mike here with American Muscle Cars, and on this episode we're going to be installing a cold air intake system on our 2011 Camaro SS project car, which I refer to as Pirate. The cold air intake system we're installing is made by VARARAM. These are specifically designed for the 5th generation Camaro and couldn't be any truer to the form of the word cold air intake, as they draw the air from directly behind the grill over the top of the radiator and into the throttle body. We'll be coupling this up with one of their power wedges, which also helps to align the throttle body up with the cold air intake system. It's supposed to add a couple of extra horsepower. We'll find out. Anyway, when we get done with that, tomorrow morning we're going to take it back down to Jeremy at Huck's Automotive, put it back on the dyno, do a little tune, and see exactly what kind of horsepower that our bolt-on modification has done for us. Anyway, that's all that for now. Let's get to work.
First, we need to remove this plenum engine cover. Now we need to get the factory airbox and filter system out of the way. It's a fairly easy process on our 2011 Camaro SS, involving the removal of a couple of nuts, a mass flow air sensor wire, and a hose clamp at the throttle body. The two nuts are 10mm, and the use of a ratchet and deep well socket with a short extension will make this job easier. Removal of the mass flow air sensor wire is likewise easy, as seen here. Now loosen the hose clamp at the throttle body with a flat screwdriver, a 5/16 or 8mm nut driver. Then the entire assembly is ready to come out. I've already opened the filter box here, removing the bottom section separately. Now with that out of the way, we're ready to begin the installation of our new VARARAM cold air intake system. I'll be starting with the VARARAM power wedge, sold separately, and it's an easy install. Just follow the instructions. Using a 10mm socket to remove the 4 throttle body mounting bolts, place the power wedge between the throttle body and intake, then reinstall the throttle body with the factory bolts and tighten to factory specifications. Now we're on to the feature install, the VARARAM cold air intake itself. A unique design that draws air from behind the grill area just over the radiator and directly into the throttle body. Now this model only fits the 2010-2011 Camaros. We start by removing the two 10mm upper radiator support bolts, brackets, and rubber grommets. I ended up having to cut 2 small tabs off the top of the radiator to complete my install properly, so you may be prepared to have to improvise some. Now we install the rubber heat pad on top of the radiator as shown, then the VR neck to throttle body coupling. Take care to point the PCV tube to the left side. Then you can snug the clamp, although I wouldn't tighten it all the way just yet. We have to install our factory mass flow air sensor on the VARARAM intake for our modestly modified LS3 engine. Now we're ready to put the VARARAM intake in place. This is where the job may get a little frustrating at times. The scoop of the intake goes just over the top of the radiator behind the grill, adjusting the radiator as you go. Push the back of the intake down, and you may have to use a little WD-40 and a couple of flat screwdrivers to work the rubber coupling around the intake discharge hub. Then put the other clamp on and tighten them down. Almost done. Now connect the included hose to the PCV discharge on the passenger side of the valve cover and trim to fit the connection at the throttle body coupling. Make sure all your connections are secure. Finally, using the radiator mounting kit in the VARARAM package, install and tighten the upper radiator mounts as described in the instructions. You'll need your 10mm socket, extension, and a swivel might be handy here too. Last, reconnect the mass flow air sensor wire and make sure the harness is secure. You don't want your wires hanging around and get caught up in any pulleys. Once I'm convinced everything is completed properly and the tools are moved from the engine bay, we're ready for a test run and final inspection. Sounds pretty good, huh? I look everything over, watching for loose connections, clamps or bolts. Then I check the clearance of the pulleys and the belts, since the radiator has been tilted back about an inch on this install, but it all looks good. Once I'm convinced everything is good and secure, I take it for a short test drive. Then I'll check the engine again for any issues. My only concern with this intake system is changing or recharging the air filter in it. This looks like it could be a pain. But other than that, this is a good install. I'm impressed with the quality and the time and effort that has gone into the production of this cold air intake.
Alright guys, well, we got our cold air intake and everything bolted on yesterday. Now this morning we're headed back down to Huck's Automotive to put a good custom tune on this car and see what kind of changes we've made with all our modifications. Let's go.
Well, it's a cold winter day and we're about to put the VARARAM cold air intake and power wedge to the test. As you know, there's a lot of controversy about aftermarket cold air intakes giving you any significant power gains. But from personal experience, let me say that some will temporarily make your late model naturally aspirated engine produce extra power, but as the vehicle ECM learns about the new equipment, you'll eventually see that power start to decline, and in most cases it'll return to the same factory parameters as before. And for this reason, I suggest that you combine your bolt-on mod with a custom tune provided by a quality local performance shop, like Huck's Automotive here. They'll provide the program and upload your personal custom tune, checking it on the dyno and making any small tweaks needed to help you get the absolute most out of your vehicle and the mods that have been done to it. Anyway, let's get to business as Jeremy starts the first run on Pirate. And on this first dyno run, we have produced 381 horsepower at 5,670 RPM. Hey, that's not bad. After a short cool down and a couple tune adjustments, Jeremy starts the second dyno run.
Smell the dyno brakes. 383, still coming up?
Yes. He said 383 horsepower at about 5,620 RPM. We're getting there. After another cool down and a minute adjustment, he starts the final run. Look at there, we have 385.4 horsepower at 5,650 RPM. How about that? Let's look at those numbers side by side, starting with our baseline numbers on the top and what we did today on the bottom. We've gained about 35 horsepower and 62 foot-pounds of torque. That's right about what the VARARAM specifications offered for our Camaro's applications.
Alright, well, that's not too bad for a mostly stock engine and custom tune. Not with a simple modification like a cold air intake. Anyway, Jeremy seemed like he was fairly impressed with it, and was a fairly simple install, so not too bad. Anyway, we saw most of our gains right around 4,000 RPM or so not so much on the horsepower on the bottom end, more towards the top, but I'm not going to argue those numbers. Hey, they hung right in there with what VARARAM was advertising as far as horsepower gains. And I don't know, let's go home about wrap it up for this episode of Mike's American Muscle Cars. I'd like to ask y'all to be sure and follow us on Facebook and make sure you subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. So whenever we got new videos coming out, you'll know about it. And tell you what, we sure would appreciate if we could hear from you. Leave us a comment below. Let us know what you think of our videos, and we'll take suggestions for any upcoming. that's it for now. Like I always say though, keep the racing on the track, make it safe on the streets. Okay? God bless y'all. We'll see y'all again in the next video.